when the power of God touches mortal flesh, something happens that no human mind can fully explain, no language can adequately describe, and no earthly experience can compare with. It is not emotion. It is not imagination. It is not something you can manufacture. It is the divine meeting the human, eternity stepping into time, the supernatural overshadowing the natural. And there comes a moment so sacred, so holy, when the presence of God becomes more real than the ground beneath your feet. In that moment, you are no longer aware of yourself the way you once were. Pride disappears. Fear melts away. Every burden, every weight, every hidden struggle seems to bow in silence before a power that is greater than all. And mortal flesh is weak. It is limited. It carries pain, sickness, doubt, and brokenness. But when the power of God touches that same fragile vessel, it is as though heaven breathes upon dust, and the dust begins to live in a way it never has before. Strength comes where there was weakness. Peace floods the soul where there was torment. Light pierces through darkness that once seemed endless, and you cannot stand in that presence unchanged. It demands surrender. It calls for everything. Not part of you, not a portion of your life, but all of you. Because the power of God will never share space with self, will, or pride. It rests only upon a life that is yielded, broken, and completely open before Him. And then when that touch comes, it is gentle yet overwhelming. It is tender yet consuming. It does not force, it invites. It does not destroy, it transforms. But oh, when you say yes, when you open your heart without reservation, when you lay down every hidden thing, that power begins to move in ways you never thought possible. And suddenly, what was impossible becomes possible. Chains that held you for years fall off in a moment. Habits you could not break lose their grip. Wounds you carried in silence begin to heal, not slowly, not partially, but deeply, completely, divinely. And there is a glory in that touch that no human can take credit for. No person can produce it. No system can replicate it. It is purely God, holy, sovereign, and beyond understanding, and yet He chooses to let that power rest upon mortal flesh. And think of that. The creator of the universe, the one who spoke worlds into existence, chooses to touch something as fragile as you and me. Not because we deserve it, not because we have earned it, but because of His grace. And then when that power rests upon you, you carry something the world cannot give and cannot take away. You become aware that your life is no longer your own. You belong to something higher, something eternal, something holy. And the greatest tragedy is not that God withholds His power, but that so many never come to the place of surrender where they can receive it. They hold on to control. They cling to their own strength. They resist the very thing their soul desperately needs. But for those who dare to surrender, for those who are willing to be nothing so that He can be everything, there is an encounter waiting, an encounter that changes everything forever. There are moments in life when the human mind reaches its limit, when reasoning fails and understanding falls silent before something far greater than itself. The divine encounter is not something that can be explained through logic or contained within human thought. It is beyond education, beyond intellect, beyond anything the natural senses can grasp. It comes suddenly, yet it feels eternal. It touches deeply, yet it cannot be traced or predicted. It is the meeting of a holy God with fragile humanity, where time seems to pause and eternity gently steps into the present. And in such a moment, awareness shifts. The things that once seemed important lose their significance, and the invisible becomes more real than the visible. The heart begins to sense a presence that cannot be seen, but is undeniably there. It is not imagination, because imagination fades. This remains. It lingers. It presses upon the soul with a weight that is both tender and overwhelming. And there is a sacred stillness that often accompanies this encounter, as though everything within falls quiet to make room for something holy. Words become unnecessary and explanations feel inadequate. The soul recognizes something it has longed for, even if it never understood that longing before. It is as if a deep call within is finally answered by a greater voice from beyond. And human strength has no place here. Pride cannot survive in this atmosphere. What remains is a deep awareness of one's own limitations and an overwhelming sense of divine presence that cannot be controlled, managed, or fully comprehended, and mortal weakness is something every human being carries, whether it is visible or hidden deep within. It shows itself in moments of fear, in seasons of doubt, in the quiet struggles that no one else sees. The body grows tired. The mind becomes overwhelmed, and the heart can feel burdened beyond what it can carry. No matter how strong a person appears on the outside, there is always a place of limitation, a point where human strength reaches its end and can go no further. And it is in that very place of weakness that the supernatural power of God begins to reveal itself. Not when a person feels strong, not when they are confident in their own abilities, but when they come face to face with their inability to fix, change, or control what lies within and around them. Weakness becomes the doorway, not the obstacle. It is the place where surrender is no longer an option, but a necessity. And when the power of God meets that weakness, something extraordinary begins to happen. The fragile vessel does not break under the pressure. Instead, it becomes a channel for something far greater than itself. Strength flows into the areas that once felt empty. Courage rises where fear once ruled. Peace settles into places that were once filled with unrest. And this is not a strength that originates from within human effort. It is not something that can be practiced or developed through discipline alone. It is a strength that is given, a power that rests upon weakness and transforms it from the inside out, making what was once fragile a testimony of something divine. And total surrender is not a single moment of emotion, nor is it a decision made lightly. It is a deep yielding of the heart, a complete laying down of self, where nothing is held back and nothing is hidden. It is the place where personal desires, ambitions, fears, and even cherished plans are placed in the hands of God without condition or reservation. Many speak of surrender, but few truly understand the cost, because it requires the release of control, and control is something human nature clings to with great intensity. And there is a resistance within the human heart that fights against this kind of yielding. It prefers to hold on, to manage outcomes, to keep certain areas untouched. But the power of God does not rest upon partial surrender. It does not flow freely through a life that is divided, where one part says yes, while another part quietly says no. The necessity of total surrender becomes clear when a person realizes that holding back even a small portion creates a barrier to something far greater. And when surrender becomes complete, there is a shift that takes place within. The struggle to control begins to fade, and in its place comes a deep sense of release. The weight of trying to carry life alone is lifted, and the soul begins to rest in a way it never has before. Trust replaces fear, and obedience becomes a natural response, rather than a forced effort. And it is in this place of complete yielding that the power of God finds full expression, moving without resistance, filling every part of the life that has been opened and laid bare before Him. And transformation through God's touch is not an outward adjustment or a temporary change in behavior. It is something far deeper, something that reaches into the core of a person's being and begins to reshape what could never be altered by human effort alone. It does not start on the surface where others can see, but in the hidden places of the heart, where thoughts are formed, where motives are born, and where struggles quietly take root. And when that divine touch comes, it does not ask permission from past failures or present limitations. It moves beyond history, beyond patterns, beyond the labels that have been placed upon a life. What once seemed permanent begins to loosen its grip. The things that defined a person for years start to lose their authority. It is not forced change, nor is it driven by pressure. It is a gentle yet undeniable work that continues even when it cannot be fully explained. And there is a breaking that often comes with this transformation, not a breaking that destroys, but one that opens the heart in a way it has never been opened before. Walls that were built over time begin to fall, and areas that were once guarded become places where light can enter. It is in this openness that true change begins to take shape, not through striving, but through yielding. And the evidence of this transformation is not found in words alone, but in a life that begins to reflect something different. Old reactions shift, desires begin to change, and a new awareness starts to guide decisions and actions from within, revealing a work that could only come from a power beyond human ability. And the manifestation of glory in human flesh is one of the greatest mysteries, where something eternal chooses to reveal itself through something temporary. Human flesh, with all its limitations, was never designed to carry such weight on its own. Yet when the glory of God begins to rest upon it, it becomes a vessel of divine expression. This glory is not something visible in the natural sense alone, nor is it something that can be measured or defined by outward appearance. It is a presence, a radiance that flows from within and touches everything around it. And there is a distinct difference when that glory is present. It cannot be imitated, and it cannot be produced by effort or desire. It carries a depth that silences human pride and draws attention away from the individual and towards something far greater. Those who encounter it may not fully understand it, but they recognize that something holy is taking place, something beyond the ordinary flow of life. And for the one upon whom this glory rests, there is an awareness that grows stronger with time. It is not a feeling of importance, but of responsibility. The realization that human life is now a carrier of something sacred changes the way one thinks, speaks, and moves. There is a carefulness, a reverence, because the vessel understands it is no longer living for itself. And this manifestation does not come through striving, nor does it remain where there is resistance. It flows where there is humility, where the heart remains open and yielded, allowing that divine presence to be expressed through mortal flesh in a way that reflects something eternal. And the tragedy of resisting divine power is not always loud or visible. Often it happens quietly within the depths of the human heart. It is not found only in open rejection, but in subtle hesitation, in delayed obedience, in the quiet choice to hold on rather than let go. Many people long for the touch of God, yet at the same time resist the very surrender that makes that touch possible. There is a tension between desire and control, between wanting transformation and fearing what it might require. And resistance does not always appear as rebellion. Sometimes it hides behind reason, behind comfort, behind the need to understand everything before taking a step forward. The human mind seeks explanation, while the divine calls for trust. And in that moment, a choice is made, whether to remain within the boundaries of what feels safe or to step into something unknown and greater. The tragedy is that what is resisted is not harmful, not destructive, but life-giving, restoring, and full of purpose. And over time, resistance can become a habit. The heart grows less sensitive, less responsive, less aware of what it is turning away from. What was once a gentle conviction becomes easier to ignore. What was once a clear calling becomes distant and faint. Not because the divine presence has withdrawn, but because the human heart has slowly built walls that limit what it is willing to receive. And yet, even in resistance, there remains an invitation, quiet, persistent, and full of mercy. A call to release control, to let go of fear, to move beyond hesitation. But the longer one resists, the greater the loss, not of opportunity alone, but of experiencing the fullness of what divine power was meant to accomplish within mortal flesh.